Joining us like he does every single week during the NFL season, all city NFL analyst, our guy, NFL Network, Brian Baldinger. Baldy's breakdowns, I'll be transparent, Baldy, these are much more beneficial for us, much more fun when the Cardinals are playing like this. They've won 3 in a row for the first time since 2021. And, I mean, you've been tweeting about it, breaking down the clips. Nobody does it better. I mean, what was the formula this week for what we saw really was a beatdown of Chicago?
It was. Well, first of all, they didn't beat themselves. A lot of games are lost. They're not won. They didn't beat themselves. They took care of the football. DeMarco's run right before the half was huge. But defensively, Chicago had come in and they felt like their offense had arrived. They felt like even though they lost to Washington the week before, they felt like the way they played in the fourth quarter, the way they moved the football, they felt like they kind of gave the game away. They fumbled on the goal line, giving the ball to a guard. They felt like they were a better team. And so they felt good about themselves. I mean, the running game got shut down. The quarterback never got into a rhythm with any receiver. Not just, I don't know what happened to the tight end. I like Cole Kmet. He was invisible. He seemed late with all of his throws, whether he was throwing go routes or whether he was throwing corner routes. Like he seemed late with the ball. And then it really, he wasn't sharp. And then the receivers dropped a couple passes too. They never let them build any momentum, ever think that they could get back into the game. And they shut them down completely. And it was really credit. I thought it was the best of secondary play. Garrett Williams, Thomas, Max Melton, obviously Buddha. But the 3 corners, they went up against a good receiving core and they outplayed them.
It was a second consecutive home game, Baldy, where the Cardinals defense that doesn't get a ton of credit didn't surrender a touchdown to the opposition there. So 2 straight home games there. I'm sure a mixed product of the Bears not having anything going on the offensive side, but where do we put the credit as far as Nick Rallis in that defense? You already started to kind of give some flowers to that secondary, but what did you see overall?
A couple things. He changed up his fronts quite a bit. He went to a 5-man defensive front. He went to a 3-man. He played the diamond with Kazir White inside. So they did a little bit of that. They mixed in, safety blitz with Buddha at the right time. A couple overload pressures, but not a ton of them. Just enough to get a free hitter coming, at Caleb and getting him kind of running and getting him out of any kind of a rhythm. I thought they changed up a little bit up front, which, maximized the talent that they have on that side of the ball.
Baldy, I've been critical, as have others, on Drew Petzing this year from time to time. This offense, the sum of their parts should be putting up more points. Well, that hasn't been a problem each of the last 2 weeks. They've done it differently. I know Chicago was without Montez Sweat. I don't want to downplay that. And you came on our show last week and said this is probably going to be the best defense the Cardinals are going to face, even sans Montez Sweat. Like, how are they able to push around a Chicago front 7 seemingly at will? Some of those holes made by the Cardinal offensive line, like I could have run through.
They ran literally the same 3 plays all game. Honestly, I could draw up the run game in 5 minutes, but they executed. I don't care if it was Tristan Colon that was pulling from the right guard and going left, or Evan Brown, or, how they ran, counter Trey with Elijah Higgins, or if it was McBride, the trapper and the rapper, counter Trey, like they were really good at it. And James Conner does what James Conner does. He just runs through tackles. He gets extra yards. He stays on his feet. And they stayed with it. And they believed that they could do it. Chicago went to 3 linebackers. It didn't make a difference. They really pounded them up front. I think they lost Billings during the game. He's a good player too up front. But it's okay. It doesn't matter. Nobody put an asterisk next to the game saying, well, they had an injury and Montez didn't. There's none of that stuff that goes on. They drafted Austin Booker in the 5th round to be a starting defensive end. He had to play. But they physically whipped him up front. And if you're Matt Eberflus, if you say anything else to your team, then you're lying to your team. They got physically beaten up front. And that's kind of what the Cardinals have shown they could do. They did it last year in Pittsburgh. They did it in Philadelphia. They did it at Dallas last year. Like, they shown that they can do it. They did it against a probably one of the better defenses they faced this year. And, the big run, like I said, by DeMercado was real. That really, I don't know why they were in that defense. I don't know why they were blitzing their slot defender on that play with 20-something seconds to go. I'm not sure what they were thinking, but they made him pay for doing it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Over 105 yards on 2 plays to end the half from the Bears. Just demoralizing for any team to try to come back from. You could have had a running clock in the second half after that play. So for the first couple of weeks of this season, we're all pounding the table, get Marv involved, get Marvin Harrison Jr. more involved. He has 2 catches in this game. The passing attack, an afterthought, but do you give him a pass for this game just based off how bad the Bears, they just couldn't stop the run? You just had to kind of run that scheme?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, give them a pass a little bit, but they're going to need Marvin. If they really, I know we'll get to it, but I know they made a trade, which is significant. We talked about it last week. We'll get to it, but if they're going to really make a play in the NFC West, they need Marvin to be a factor. Like, you go up San Francisco, I'm going to see him on Sunday. Kittle's going to be a factor. Debo's going to be a factor. Ricky Pearsall's going to step up. McCaffrey's coming on the field. You watch the Rams play. There's Nakua, there's Cooper, Robinson. You go to Seattle. You need firepower. You're going to need Marvin. Like, it's good that you can win a game like that when Chicago's offense was dreadful, and you can, win a game where they don't score a touchdown. Okay. But if you want to go compete in this NFC West and it's open, you're going to need Marvin. And so you better start finding ways to get him the ball and dialing up some plays for him and calling his number. I mean, look, in the last 2 weeks, Travis Kelce has been targeted 28 times. He's got 20 catches. Like, they're finding ways to get, like, he's their engine. You got to get him going. I was critical of the Giants on Sunday. They didn't complete a pass to Malik Neighbors to the third quarter. He's their best player. Like, you got to get these guys involved, and they can't throw the ball to themselves. It's stupid, I know, but you can't do that. Like, it's, the week before, he was the difference against Miami. Like, they need Marvin. And so the earlier they can get him going in these games, the better they're going to be.
Baldy, you mentioned it. Let's dive into the acquisition. We go through this roster and, put the fanboy glasses down for a second. I do think that they have more solutions than questions right now outside of their defensive front seven, their defensive line, which we've chronicled all off season. It's been a bugaboo spot for them. They've lost players. We're still waiting on Darius Robinson. So give Monty Ossenford credit. He goes out and gets Baron Browning from the Denver Broncos. And while it's not my first choice, Baldy, box score scouting, 0 sacks on the year. What have you seen now from the 4th-year player, ex-Bronco out of Ohio State? What can he provide given what you know about him and the Cardinal defense?
I think I might be wrong, but I think Barron came in as a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think he was a 3rd-round pick at Ohio State. He has had – now, Nick Bonito has really stepped up. They've had other guys right now kind of step up for him. So he hasn't really had a chance to play that much. But he has been a pretty good pass rusher. He is a true outside linebacker, stand-up, 3-4 outside linebacker. You got Zaven Collins over there. You got Victor. You got some different guys. But I feel like he's a guy that can come off the edge and give you a little juice off the edge. Is he going to go – I don't know. You play the Jets this week. I mean, is he going to go beat Morgan Moses this weekend? He can. I mean, Morgan's not playing great, and Tyron Smith isn't playing great right now. He could win, and Aaron Rodgers is looking to get rid of the ball quickly. I mean, you're just looking for a guy that can bring something off the edge and makes – and beat a tackle or beat, a combination block of a back and a tight end. You're just looking for somebody that can do it. I feel like he's got that kind of ability to do that.
You talked about the defensive secondary and the success they had, but I wanted to kind of give our audience more insight as far as how well they're playing. And I want to focus on Garrett Williams, somebody who came, the Cardinals benefited from him having an injury at the end of his college career. He slips to the 3rd round, they bring him along slowly. He makes a solid debut last season, but then this season he seems to have upped his game and found another gear. What have you seen from the 2nd-year corner out of Syracuse? Where does he fit in as far as slot corners in the NFL?
Well, it's an important position. I mean, if you don't have because that position, you have to be able to tackle. You have to tackle well. You've got to, in the run game, you've got to beat receivers. and be that extra guy in the box, like you've got to be a factor in the run game. And then you've got to defend these guys in the slot that have a lot of room to work. You don't have the sidelines where you can push somebody to the sidelines. You got a lot of field to cover. And so what he did last week, whether it was to Keenan Allen or whether it was to Roma Dunze, because DJ doesn't really go inside, like it was outstanding. And, you get a chance to, cover a dig route in the middle of the field and defend it like he did. Those are important plays. And so I feel like he's growing into the position. It's not a natural position because they don't really play that style in college. Like like maybe Brian Branch at Alabama played a little bit like that. But by and large, you have to kind of learn that position. You have to grow into it. You don't really draft corners to be slot corners. Maybe San Ristel with the Commanders right now is that guy. That's what he was at Michigan. But only a couple programs really had those type of players. So it's a position you're used to playing on the outside. This is your new position. They're doing it right now with Diamador Lenore in San Francisco. He's playing great in that spot. Like it's a position you have to sort of acquire right now. And I feel like last week was a big step for him.
Baldy, we talked about it earlier in the show. The Cardinals, their ceiling, the NFC West, it's up for grabs. But realistically speaking, like this is a team that was 2-4 just 3 weeks ago. They have a favorable schedule down the stretch. Like what are your expectations now? We've got a firm sample size of this team, not only under Jonathan Ganon, but here in 2024, like should the expectations based off what you've seen be like, yeah, this is a team that should make the postseason. This is a team that should be viable come January where we're looking up and they've netted themselves 9, 10, 11 wins? Or do you feel like there could be a little bit of a ceiling pertaining to the talent on the roster?
Well, I mean, without being cliche, I mean, it's a week-to-week league. They should be feeling pretty good about themselves. The Jets are coming off a 10-day rest period. They played last Thursday night. I was there today, doing a bunch of stuff. Like they haven't practiced yet since they played Thursday night. Like I don't get it, honestly. Like that's a team that needs to practice. That's a team that makes a lot of mistakes. They make a lot of pre-snap errors. They make a lot of mistakes, period. Arizona has played fairly mistake-free football. Their offensive line is committing a lot of mistakes. Their secondary isn't guilty of a lot of infractions where you get easy first downs. But the Jets have done that. They have beaten themselves. Like I feel like if the Cardinals can be aggressive and Kyler can continue to take care of the football the way he has, but stay aggressive, the Jets have had trouble stopping good running football teams. Like if they beat the Jets this week, like they have to start thinking like they can win the division and they should be a playoff team. Because honestly, in the NFC North, a lot of those teams are going to beat each other. Green Bay, Chicago, Detroit. Like maybe Detroit just rises out of all of it, and maybe Minnesota, Chicago takes, like they're going to have a chance to be either win the division or be a second place team in the division. And they have 4 division games coming up. They're 2-0 in the division. Like they got a chance. If they play mistake-free football yet stay aggressive, and if they can get Marvin going, they've got a chance to win the division.
I mean, it feels like it's trending in the Cardinals' direction at 5-4, a chance to get to 6-4 from the bye, maybe come back and add a piece like Darius Robinson, and then you got the Seahawks who are struggling right now. I mean, there's a path where they could be 7-4 before you know it. We got to hear from the franchise quarterback today, Baldy, Kyler Murray, after a win, pretty pedestrian and below average passing numbers. But we talked about it, the game plan, running the football. But he was critical of himself, saying, hey, I missed Trey McBride in the end zone. It could have been an easy pass and catch. He seems like he's got the right mindset. With all that you said about winning the division, how much of it falls on the shoulders of their franchise quarterback to maybe take it to another gear? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, these quarterbacks win these games. You get into a dogfight, even against the Jets this weekend, the quarterbacks are going to decide the outcome of the game. Aaron Rodgers has had he had a great moment against Houston last Thursday night through 3 second-half touchdown passes. He was the difference. The throw to Garrett Wilson, I mean, he makes a once-in-a-lifetime catch. I know he leads the league in receptions right now, but it's a once-in-a-lifetime catch. Devontae on 4th down, they have a connection. The quarterbacks have got to make the difference. Kyler has got to make some big-time throws. He looks like he's more comfortable in the pocket than I've seen him before. maybe he's trusting his protection because they have protected him well. So, like they're on their third right tackle, but you wouldn't really know it by the way Beach has played. So you have to expect a lot from the quarterback. I watched Matt Stafford the other day against Seattle. Like they hit him so many times in that game, he just keeps firing. And he was the difference in the game. And you got great coaches out there. So, Jonathan's going to be up against Sean McVay. He's going to be up against Kyle. We'll see what Mike McDonald's like in a big spot. They don't look like a great defense to me right now, but they played a lot harder last week than what I've seen them play.
Baldy, my last question for you. You mentioned Jonathan Ganon. I do find it fascinating that the trend around the NFL kind of dogging on defensive head coaches. And it's ironic. We just saw Matt Eberflus, who was a mentor of Jonathan Ganon. Talk to me a little bit about what you've seen from Eberflus compared to JG and maybe what one coach is doing and what one coach isn't doing, because they're ready to fire Eberflus at the drop of a hat. And here you've got Jonathan Ganon in what I think is a very high-end level coaching division leading it after 9 weeks.
Well, some of it is, the decisions you make when you hire your staff. I mean, Shane Waldron's under a lot of heat right now. He's got the number 1 pick in the draft. They went and got a bunch of receivers, and there was just no rhythm to that offense. And some of the offense, not just in the win streak, there were some things I saw where they were making real changes. Like I would look at different offenses around the league, and I'm going, Caleb could be really successful if he was running Buffalo's offense. So I feel like part of Jonathan's success is Nick Reales has proven to me that he can shut down good offenses right now and bother quarterbacks like he did in San Francisco, the Rams, et cetera. And then, what Drew has done, I want to see more, but the quarterback's playing good. He's not playing great, but he's not losing games, and he looks way more comfortable than he ever has, and he's probably running less. So it looks like there's a foundation that they're laying there. I want to see more. I want to see a little bit more creativity from Drew. I want to see Kyler do a little bit more because I think there's more to do from his talent standpoint, whether it's bootlegs, whether it's putting him in different positions to make better throws. I want to see a little more. But I think Jonathan's got the pulse of the team because we've always said that they play hard. Outside of Washington this year, they look prepared. Like those are all head coaching decisions. Can you handle success? Well, they're handling success right now. This is a huge test with the Jets coming to town. They've had 10 days to get ready. We're going to find out a lot about this team and Jonathan Ganon this week against a Jets team that has a very, very talented roster.
Where can we see you this week, Baldy? Which game are you assigned to?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be in the NFC. I'm going to be in Tampa, San Francisco and Tampa this weekend. I don't think the schedule makers did Tampa any favorites by playing them on Monday night on the road, and San Francisco coming off the rest that they've had. And here comes McCaffrey healthy. So
yeah, they
didn't do Tampa any favorites when they put this one together.
Should Bulls have gone for 2?
I mean, if you don't make it, you don't have a chance. Right. If you kick the extra point, at least you have a chance whether it's winning the coin toss and scoring, or your defense out there at least holding them to a field goal. Like you have more chances, I think, if you just kick the extra point and you go to overtime.
We love Todd Bowles here in Arizona. There will be no Todd Bowles slander here.
I'm just curious. I just wanted to hear Brian Baldinger's thoughts, and we'll get even more of that on the call with the Bucks and the Niners. And of course, you can see his work, NFL Network, and follow him on Twitter @BaldyNFL.
Please,
Baldy, love it, man.
Yeah,
talk to you next week.
Yep. Enjoy the weekend. I'll talk to you next week.
We all silly like the mayor.